I was sitting at a dinner party, shrimp skewers circling the table, when my friend Mia casually asked, "So, how was the family retreat?" Her words hit like a rogue wave. I froze, wine glass halfway to my lips, and managed a weak, "What? Retreat?" She laughed, thinking I was joking, and pulled out her phone. There it was, an Instagram post from my sister, a drone shot of 118 people posing at a lakeside resort in matching t-shirts, a banner screaming 2025 annual family retreat. My parents stood front and center, surrounded by my 6 siblings, their spouses, kids, cousins, even in-laws I hadn't seen in years. Everyone but me. A few weeks earlier, I'd called my mom, asking about the retreat. "Oh, we're keeping it small," she'd said, her voice breezy. "Not enough space for everyone." I didn't push middle child habits die hard. I just assumed I'd hear if plans changed. But scrolling through those photos, seeing laminated name tags and a color-coordinated crowd, I realized this wasn't small. It was curated, and I wasn't on the guest list. I excused myself to the bathroom, locked the door, and sat on the tub's edge, the air thick with lavender soap. My phone burned in my hand as I swiped through more posts: lakeside brunches, campfire nights, my parents slow dancing under string lights. Tears came, quiet and sharp, but I didn't break. I washed my face, forced a smile, and rejoined the party. Nobody noticed, but something inside me had already started to shift. Growing up as number 4 out of 7 kids in a family that could have doubled as a traveling Broadway troupe was like being the only non-singer in a choir. My family was loud, musical, and chaotic, like a modern-day Von Trapp family, minus the Alps but with just as much drama. Everyone sang. My brothers belted out harmonies at Thanksgiving, my sisters played guitar at birthday parties, and even the toddlers had better rhythm than I ever would. 2 of my siblings were chasing music careers, posting covers on YouTube that racked up thousands of views. Family dinners weren't just meals. They were full-blown performances, complete with improvised duets and standing ovations from aunts and uncles. Me? I was tone deaf. I didn't know it at first. As a kid, I'd sing in the shower, hum along to the radio in the minivan, thinking I was holding my own. Then, at 7, during a cousin's birthday party, I joined in on a round of "Happy Birthday." My older sister, Emily, winced like I'd dropped a cymbal in a quiet scene. "Clara, please," she said, her voice sharp. "You're flattening everything." The room erupted in laughter, not the warm kind, but the kind that sticks to you like gum on a shoe. I didn't know what flattening meant, but I knew it wasn't good. That moment became a family legend, the start of my unofficial title. Clara, the noise killer. By the time I was 10, the nickname had evolved. My brother Ethan, the self-appointed comedian of the family, coined Clara joke for anything that bombed: jokes, ideas, even my attempts to join their talent shows. Once, he made a chart ranking all 7 of us by musical talent. My name wasn't even on it. The caption read, "Some things can't be measured." My siblings thought it was hilarious, and soon Clara joke became shorthand for anything that didn't land. They'd say it to each other, even when I wasn't around. "That's such a Clara joke, dude." It wasn't just about music anymore. It was about me not fitting in. I tried to laugh it off, to play along, because that's what you do when you're the middle kid in a family that thrives on spotlight moments. But inside, it stung, like a paper cut you don't notice until it starts to burn. I decided to pivot. If I couldn't sing, maybe I could be funny. I'd always had a knack for noticing the absurd: how my dad's quick trips to Home Depot turned into 3-hour odysseys, or how my mom's obsession with matching tablecloths made our house look like a Pinterest board exploded. I started testing jokes at family dinners, dry one-liners I thought were clever. But in a family that worships slapstick, think pie-in-the-face humor, my sarcasm fell flat. Once, I said something about our dog looking like he was plotting a corporate takeover, and the table went silent. My brother Josh snorted, "That's such a Clara joke." I tried again a few times, but the silence was louder than the laughter. Eventually, I asked my mom if she thought I was funny. She smiled, the kind of smile you give a kid who asks if they can fly. "You're clever, Clara," she said, "but you're not exactly entertaining." That was the moment I stopped trying. I learned to be quiet, helpful, the one who refilled the water pitcher or cleared the plates while everyone else performed. High school wasn't much better. I'd test my humor with friends, but I was always waiting for the silence, the wince, the proof I was a Clara joke all over again. So, I leaned into being pleasant, invisible. I got good grades, joined the debate team, wrote snarky essays for English class that made my teachers chuckle but never shared them with anyone else. After college, I landed a marketing job in Chicago, crafting taglines for toothpaste and dog food. It paid the bills, but it felt like I was still clearing plates at the family table just without the harmonies. I started writing again, not for work, but for me. Late at night, I'd jot down observations in a notebook, bits about how my coworkers' obsession with circling back emails made me want to yeet myself into Lake Michigan, or how my landlord's pet-friendly policy clearly didn't account for my goldfish's existential crises. They weren't polished, but they made me laugh, and that felt like enough. Then one random Tuesday, I saw a flyer for an open mic night at a dive bar downtown, the kind of place with sticky floors, and a mic that crackled if you breathed too hard. I don't know what possessed me. Maybe it was the third glass of Ross or the fact that I'd just turned 25 and realized I had nothing to lose, but I signed up. I spent a week scribbling a 5-minute set, mostly awkward stories about my failed attempts at dating apps and a theory that oat milk was just soggy cardboard in disguise. When the night came, I stood in front of 20 strangers, my hands shaking, and started talking. The first laugh hit like a shot of adrenaline. It wasn't polite or pitying, it was real, the kind that ripples through a room. By the end, people were clapping, a few even whooping. A guy at the bar said, "You're funny as hell." I was hooked. I kept going back week after week, refining my material. I wasn't selling out comedy clubs or going viral, but I was getting laughs, real ones, from strangers who didn't know I was the family's designated vibe killer. For the first time, I felt seen, not as Clara the noise killer, but as Clara, the person who could make a room light up. I didn't tell my family for months. They were busy with their own lives. My sister's band was touring, my brother's SoundCloud was popping off, and my parents were planning their next big retreat. But one night, over takeout pizza at their house, I let it slip. "So, I've been doing some comedy," I said, picking at a pepperoni. My younger sister, Lily, smirked. "Like performing?" I nodded. "Stand up, small club downtown." Ethan laughed, not cruelly, but like I'd said I was joining a circus. "You? On a stage?" I shrugged. "It's not Madison Square Garden, just a bar with expired beer, but yeah." My mom chimed in, her tone soft but final. "That's sweet, Clara. It's good to have hobbies." Hobbies. Like I was knitting scarves or collecting rare coins. I invited them to a show anyway, a Friday night with a decent crowd. I bought a new top, rehearsed until I could recite my set in my sleep, and reserved seats in the third row. I kept glancing at the door as the room filled, hoping to see a familiar face. My parents, my siblings, anyone. The host called my name, and I scanned the crowd one last time. Empty seats stared back. I walked on stage, smiled, and delivered my set. It was one of my best nights. The crowd roared at my bit about Chicago winters feeling like a personal vendetta from Mother Nature. A woman in the back told me she hadn't laughed that hard in months. But as I stepped off stage, all I could see was that empty third row. It wasn't just disappointment, it was like the air got sucked out of the room, leaving me hollow. After that, I stopped inviting them. Not out of anger, but survival. I kept performing, booking more gigs, building a small following. Strangers left comments on my Instagram clips. "Relatable. You're hilarious." Each one felt like a bandage over a wound I didn't want to admit was there. My family never asked about it. Occasionally, someone would mention my little comedy thing, like it was a phase I'd outgrow, like my childhood stamp collection. But I wasn't outgrowing it. I was growing into it. Every laugh from a stranger chipped away at the Clara joke label, replacing it with something new. Clara, the comedian. Clara, the one who made it anyway. The night I found out about the family retreat, the one with 118 people, matching t-shirts, and a drone-shot Instagram post that didn't include me, I went home, opened my laptop, and stared at a blank screen. My usual comedy set was ready to go. 5 minutes of safe, crowd-pleasing bits about dating disasters and my theory that oat milk is just liquid regret. But as I sat there, the cursor blinking like it was judging me, something snapped. I couldn't shake the image of my parents slow dancing under string lights, my siblings in coordinated sundresses, everyone at that lakeside resort acting like I didn't exist. I didn't plan to rewrite my set. It just happened. The words poured out, raw and unfiltered, like I was finally saying what I'd been swallowing for years. By the time I finished, I had a new 5-minute bit, not polished, but honest. It felt like pulling a splinter out of my soul. The next night, I walked into the comedy club, a dive bar in Chicago's Wicker Park with a stage that smelled like spilled beer and broken dreams. The crowd was decent, maybe 50 people, nursing IPIS and scrolling their phones. I'd performed there a dozen times, but this felt different. My usual notes stayed in my bag. When the host called my name, I stepped up to the mic, heart pounding like I was about to jump off a cliff. Most comedians get into this because their families laughed at their jokes. I started, my voice steady but sharp. I got into it because mine didn't. They even made a category for it, Clara joke, like a dad joke, but meaner. The crowd chuckled, a warm ripple that gave me courage. I kept going, weaving in stories of my family's musical obsession, how I was the tone-deaf oddball, the designated audience member in a house full of stars. Then I dropped the bomb. Last week, my parents told me there wasn't enough space for me at our family retreat. Then they invited 118 people. The room gasped, then erupted into laughter, the kind that's half shock, half delight. I paused, letting it sink in. Yeah, no space at the resort, just in their idea of who belongs. I don't know what I expected, maybe a few laughs, a polite clap. But when I stepped off stage, the crowd was on their feet, cheering like I'd just won a battle. A woman in a leather jacket grabbed my arm and said, "That was raw." I felt that. Another guy asked if I had a YouTube channel. I was shaking, not from nerves, but from the weight of what I'd just done. I'd said it, out loud, in front of strangers, and they didn't laugh at me, they laughed with me. That night, I went home and filmed a video. Not a comedy set, just me on my couch in a hoodie, holding a coffee mug I wasn't drinking from. "Hi," I said, looking into my phone's camera. "Some of you saw my set last night, and it apparently hit a nerve. If your family spends 20 years saying you're not funny, then one night, strangers laugh until they cry, you're allowed to talk about it. You're allowed to heal." I took a breath, my voice steady but soft. "And if they throw a 118-person retreat and say there's no space for you, don't be shocked when you mention it on stage." I posted it to YouTube at midnight, figuring it might get a couple thousand views, maybe a few shares. I underestimated what happens when you mix dry humor with unflinching honesty. By noon, the video had 300,000 views. By evening, it was trending under hashtag #Claricide. Comments flooded in. "This hit me in the gut. I've been the invisible kid too. Keep telling your truth." I sat on my couch, scrolling through them, feeling something I hadn't in years, validation. Strangers saw me, not as the Clara joke, but as someone whose story mattered. But not everyone was clapping. At 7:03 a.m. the next morning, my phone lit up with my mom's name. I let it ring. 4 more calls followed, each one more insistent. On the 5th, I picked up, mostly because I was curious what she'd say. She didn't say hello. She didn't ask how I was. She just launched into a scream. "How dare you?" she said, her voice shaking with fury. "Someone saw your little show and told us. You humiliated us." I stayed calm, which only made her angrier. "It was a 10-minute set," I said. "I didn't name anyone. You didn't have to." She snapped. "Everyone knows it's us. Your siblings have reputations to protect. You're dragging us through the mud because you didn't get your way." I couldn't resist. "You mean because I wasn't invited? Or are we still pretending that didn't happen?" Silence. Then she pivoted. "Your brother might lose a gig over this. Your sister's mortified. People are calling her fake online." I raised an eyebrow, though she couldn't see it. "So, people believe me?" She hung up. By lunchtime, the family group chat was a war zone. My sister Emily sent a novel-length rant, claiming she'd always supported me, which was rich considering. She once told a guy I was too emotionally flat to be funny. My brother Ethan dropped a voice memo that sounded like a TED Talk on toxicity. "It's really unhealthy to bring family stuff into your brand, Clara," he said. "You've always struggled with boundaries, like the one that kept me out of a 118-person retreat." My cousin chimed in, suggesting it was probably a misunderstanding, as if I'd misread a save the date meant for someone else. An aunt said she was praying for me, which felt like code for stop talking. Another message claimed I'd broken my mom's heart. I wanted to explain, to say I wasn't trying to hurt anyone, just to breathe. But they weren't asking for clarity. They wanted me to shut up, to play the quiet middle child who takes the hit. I was done with that. The next day, my parents and two siblings showed up at my apartment, unannounced, standing on my porch like they were here to negotiate a hostage crisis. My dad was red-faced, my mom tight-lipped, and my brother Chad, because of course his name is Chad, stood with his arms crossed like a bouncer at a club I wasn't cool enough to enter. "You need to take it down," my dad said, skipping pleasantries. "You've humiliated us," my mom added, her voice low but venomous. "You made us a joke." I leaned against the doorframe, calm as a lake. "I didn't make you a joke," I said. "You did. I just put it in a punchline." Chad stepped forward, puffing out his chest. "You can't post stuff like that without consequences." I raised an eyebrow. "Like when I invited you to my shows and nobody showed up. Now you're suddenly subscribers?" My dad glanced at the neighbor's yard, lowering his voice. "Can we come in?" "No," I said flatly. "And if you start yelling, I'll film it and post it." They froze, like I'd pulled a grenade. "Bye now," I said, and shut the door. Through the peephole, I watched them stand there, stunned, before they finally left. For the first time, I wasn't the one backing down. The fallout came faster than I expected. 3 days after my video went viral, trending under #ClaraSideDit with 500,000 views, a letter arrived in my inbox. It was from my brother Chad, typed in Times New Roman with spacing so erratic it looked like it was drunk. The subject line read "Urgent Family Concern," and it was a cease and desist demand, claiming my comedy set and follow-up video were defamation is deformationation. Yes, he misspelled it. Chad, with his shiny international trade law degree and a job pushing papers for a shipping company, thought he could scare me into silence. The letter demanded I take down the video or face legal repercussions. I read it twice, torn between laughing and rolling my eyes. This wasn't a lawsuit. It was a tantrum in 12-point font. Instead of responding, I did what I do best. I turned it into comedy. I didn't show the actual letter or name Chad. Plausible deniability. But I filmed a new video. Sitting at my kitchen table, I read a fake cease and desist letter, complete with comical typos and dramatic background music like I was narrating a true crime podcast. Apparently, I deadpanned, pointing out I wasn't invited to a 118-person family retreat is a federal crime. Somewhere, the First Amendment is crying. I ended with a mock signature. "Respectfully yours, Chad the Enforcer." I posted it on Thursday. By Friday, it had 900,000 views and 3 interview requests from local podcasts. The internet loved it, especially my deadpan delivery. Comments poured in. "Chad needs to chill. This is iconic. Keep slaying, Clara." But my family wasn't laughing. The group chat, already a minefield after my first video, became a full-blown war zone. My sister Emily sent another essay-length message, accusing me of weaponizing our family drama. My cousin suggested I was exaggerating for clout, as if I'd made up the retreat's guest list. An aunt texted that she was praying for my soul, which felt like a low blow. My brother Ethan dropped another voice memo, his voice dripping with corporate jargon about how my brand choices were toxic to our family's image. I wanted to scream that their image wasn't my problem, that I'd spent years fading into the background to keep their harmony intact. But they didn't want a conversation. They wanted me to delete the video, apologize, and go back to being the quiet middle child who didn't make waves. I was done with that role. So, I made a choice I'd been avoiding for years. I opened my phone, muted the family group chat, and blocked them, every single one. Instagram, Facebook, even the Spotify playlists we'd shared over the years. It wasn't spite, it was survival. I'd spent too long hoping for a seat at their table, only to realize they'd never set a place for me. Closing those apps felt like locking a door I'd left open too long, with my family out of the picture. I turned back to the one thing that hadn't let me down, my audience. The video kept climbing, hitting 1 million views by the next week. Strangers left comments that felt like hugs. "I've been the invisible one too. Your story made me feel seen. Don't let them dim your light." I'd scroll through them at night, my tiny Chicago apartment lit by the glow of my phone, and for the first time, I didn't feel alone. People I'd never met were rooting for me, sharing their own stories of being overlooked or underestimated. It wasn't just about the retreat anymore. It was about anyone who'd ever felt like they didn't belong. I leaned into it, posting more videos not about my family, but about the little things that made people laugh or nod in recognition. A bit about how Zoom meetings make you question your life choices. A story about the time I accidentally Venmo'd my barista $50 instead of $5. Each one built my channel, my confidence, my sense of self. I wasn't just Clara the comedian. I was Clara, the one who made it through. The one who turned exclusion into a stage, a story, a movement. And I wasn't going back. A year later, I'm still no contact with my family, and I don't miss the noise. My Chicago apartment feels lighter now, filled with the laughter of friends who show up, who see me for who I am, not who I'm not. My comedy career's taken off. I quit my marketing job, started touring small clubs across the Midwest, and every show feels like a step towards something bigger. I wake up excited, not bracing for someone else's judgment. The best part? The comments on my videos. Strangers write things like, "I thought I was the only one who felt invisible," or "You made me laugh and cry in one video." Each one feels like a high five from someone who gets it. I used to think belonging meant fitting into my family's spotlight, but I've found it in dive bars and YouTube comments, in people who laugh with me, not at me. Sometimes I wonder if I went too far, if I could have told my story without burning bridges. What do you think? Was I right to speak up? Or did I cross a line? Drop a comment below. I read everyone. And if you've ever felt like you didn't belong, hit that subscribe button and tap the bell. Let's keep telling these stories together.